you all a networking assignment. I'd like you to share one idea that you have for how to promote yourself professionally in your job search during the holiday season. And I count the holiday season as starting with Halloween, Thanksgiving, and whatever you call December. Get ready, get set, go. Okay, everybody, chat time is over. I do want to hear a little bit, because it's so related to the program, I would like to hear some of what you came up with about things you can do during the holiday season that will help you in your job search. Who has something that they could offer in your little discussion? Did anybody talk about that, actually, that topic? John?
I did. So, yeah, reaching out to people about either the holidays, birthday, work anniversary, anything like that. I try and touch them before I ask them for a job or an information interview, and then I go check their company and the careers on their page. But I do it by saying, I'm updating my contacts for the holidays, this is your information on Facebook, this is your information on LinkedIn, this is what I've got in my address book. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
Okay, so John mentioned that same approach last week, and LinkedIn makes it easy to do that, because they very often will give you a little bulletin, and they'll say, hey, here are people in your network that are have a work anniversary or have landed a new job or whatever. And so reaching out to them and saying, congratulations, I'm happy for you, and by the way, or you remember me, or whatever. They have to be first degree contacts, or you don't get that update anyway. And so to reach out and say congratulations, and by the way, at the end of the year, I always update all my contacts, so let me make sure that this is all still correct. So that's one way. And then you see where they're working and check and see if there are any posted openings. But if not, there so many companies have openings that are not posted. Plus, another thing you can ask is, do you have at the company where you work, do you have a recruiter program where if you promote somebody, if you recruit somebody, you bring somebody on board, recommend them, do you get some money? Because I found that there's a job that's a really good fit for me, and if you can profit from putting in a good word for me, I would love to help you make some money for the holidays. So that's another thing. We have started a new program in Launchpad called our Ambassador Program. When we hear that you've gone to work, especially if it's with a big company, but we always want to say whoopee, when you land a job. But especially if it's a big company, one of our board members, Jim Adcock, will reach out to you and congratulate you and say essentially three things. We would love for you to stay connected with Launchpad, so would you like us to keep you on our newsletter roster, so you get our newsletter? And then another one is, we hope that as jobs come open at your company, at your new company, that you'll send them our way so we can post them. And does your company have a giving program so that we can get our names on that list? For years, for 10 years or whatever, we have never tried to make money. I pretty much fund Launchpad because it doesn't take that much. How much does a banana cost? And so I've pretty much done that. But now we're in fundraising mode because we're trying to get salaries raised for our Leap to Success program. We want that program to grow. And it helps. The Leap to Success program is such a successful program because it helps Job Club members have work, essentially, have work in a different setting, in a nonprofit setting, working with a team of people from Launchpad that you probably would never have interacted with otherwise. And it helps other nonprofits. It helps nonprofits, little nonprofits who could never afford your services. So we feel that program is golden, and we want to expand it. And we can't expect the folks who are in charge of that program to work for free. So we're trying to get on as many corporate giving programs as we can. So there's those three things. Okay, and Darla, you had your hand up.
I was going to say, attend networking events and talk to people about what their company's plans are for 2017.
Networking events, that's always good. Job fairs, the cloud thing, classes. The thing is, up until this year, I gotta tell you, there have not been very many networking events other than end of the year parties that I have ever heard of. This has been the best year I have seen for actual, career fairs and corporate interactions and mixers and happy hours where you can actually talk to people from different companies. So this has been a really good opportunity. Who else had a good suggestion? What did you guys talk about? Okay, fine. We're gonna move on with the program then. All right. So it is a myth. Lots of people shut down their job search and they don't look for a job during the holiday season because they say nobody's hiring anyway. I have to remind you that has never ever been the case for the members of Launchpad Job Club. Traditionally, the last quarter of the year has always been the best quarter. And as I have been doing research for this little presentation, I saw several different statements by recruiters who said that they were always working during the holiday seasons. One recruiter said she cannot remember a year when she wasn't on the phone the day before Christmas and the day after Christmas, talking to candidates, lining up interviews, because it's a hot time of the year. You would never think it, but it's a hot time of the year. And so consistently, it's been the best for our people, even in 2001. And 2001, crazy year. Number one, it was the first year, the breakout year for the dot-com bust. I don't know how many of you were caught up in that, but 2001, 2002, we had, Dave, I know you were part of that group, that's why we go way back. But there were 38,000, they said, 38,000 essentially high-tech people laid off in Austin. And then when you count the ripple effect, I don't know how many people were laid off, but it was dark times before 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, the whole world stood still. Everything that was on the table slid off the table, and nobody knew if there was going to be, if we were going to go to war or what the implications were of that. And so hiring quit until the fourth quarter. And then companies got crazy wild, and there was tons of hiring that went on that fourth quarter, even in 2001. So, kaboom, that myth was busted for this particular group, at least from my perspective. So, one of the reasons that companies often jack up their hiring is that many companies, the end of their fiscal year is the end of the calendar year. And they have had money obligated to hire, and they have been sort of doling it out in piecemeal throughout the year, and now they don't want to lose that money, so the end of the year they start hiring people. Some companies, it's the opposite. I had a person come to me to discuss salary negotiation, and I'm not going to name the company, but she said she used to work for VMware. Several of our Launchpad people are VMware people, and she was an account manager. She had made $70,000 a year at her job at VMware, and now this fabulous, wonderful, expanding company, one of the best companies to work for in Austin, had interviewed her, given her a phone interview, and this was for a newly created position for some kind of a global account manager. And so she looked up, did her due diligent research on what would be the appropriate salary range for that. And I think she saw that it was something like $45,000 to $70,000 for that kind of a job in Austin. And so she was hoping to get, of course, the very high end of that range. And she had the background to support that. And the recruiter who had given her the phone interview initially called her back and said, before I set up this face-to-face interview, I think I ought to tell you that this is the end of our fiscal year. We've been doing a lot of hiring, and the coffers are about to be emptied, and so this job is only going to pay $47,000. Do you still want a face-to-face interview? So that was the dilemma. Do you want to take that significant a hit in your income in order to get your foot in the door at a company where you would really like to work? So at any rate, that the calendar year, where it is in the calendar year, what is the company's fiscal year, that has a huge impact as to whether or not they're going to be doing a lot of hiring. So another kaboom on that myth. One of the good things about looking for a job is that often people just say, I'm going to take December off. I don't think people are hiring anyway, and I've got family coming in. I'm just going to do the minimum to qualify for unemployment compensation. I'm going to take December off. So often, significant portions of your competition quit looking. And so for somebody to really pump up their activity in the job search world, it's a very smart thing to do. So you're looking harder, you're making more contacts, you're going out and talking to people even more, while other people are getting more, leaving it and just staying close to home. So it's a good time for you to get more and more stuff in the pipeline and just meet people. Don't quit looking. Gaboom! All right, the boom's going to be on every page. I'm just warning you. No surprises there. All right. Well, that was kind of fun. So there are often lots of workforce changes at the end of the semester. So, people say they've taken a new job and they're going to wait until their kids come to the end of the school year or the school semester, and that's when they're going to move. That's why houses go on the market at that time and so forth. So there's lots of changes that are going to be made based on the school year. And so the end of the school year in May and June, that's a good time when there's lots of changes going on in the workplace. And then, of course, during December. So it's a year of a great deal of activity, lots of movements going on, and so it's a good time to reach out and promote yourself. Yes, John?
How would that work? Would people typically, if they've taken another job, somebody's approached them, made an offer, they say, I'm coming in X weeks, would they give notice sometimes between the 1st and the 15th, and then put the house on the market like on the 20th? Something like that?
You should talk to, we might have some real estate people in here actually, just to see when that happens. I think houses frequently, it depends on when they know. Sometimes they get a job and they say, they get hired in November, they get hired in October, and they say, maybe whoever is the person who got hired, they're going to go and start the job even in another state. And then at the end of the semester, that's when the rest of the family follows, because it's a typical break. So it's just.
And then if the wife works, she might get notice with her job.
Yeah, and so it's just there's a lot of activity. People come and go. There's so much movement all the time. People get promoted, and then more jobs open up underneath, and then sometimes retirement happens at the end of the year. So people. Senior level people, look how many older people are retiring, and then they decide to retire at the end of the year and start the new year as free people, and so it just opens up a lot of stuff. There's a lot of dynamism that happens at the end of the year. So don't think that there's not a lot of activity, and it's kind of like that whole duck thing where there may not be nearly as many jobs posted, so it's kind of placid on the top, but underneath. In the back rooms of these companies, they are busy talking about how are we going to fill these jobs and what's going to be our new approach for the coming year, and we're going to have a reorg, and we're going to move everybody from this team into that team and so forth.
So this is when you might want to reach out to the hiring managers in your network and say, you see anything on the horizon, because you're...
Absolutely. This whole business of being more proactive in your job search, of course, that's Gary O'Neill's big thing, and he's been promoting that. As a recruiter, do not wait for the job to be posted. You need to go out there. You need to be contacting people. You need to be connecting with recruiters. Waiting for a job to be posted is pretty much too late. I put this graphic on the board in my job search strategies class that I teach at Workforce, and I got this from Gary during one of Gary's presentations, and I've been telling people to do this for years, but it carries more clout when Gary O'Neill, when a successful recruiter says the same thing, and it makes so much more sense. But visualize this. He drew a timeline. Here's a company timeline. And the first section on the left, at that point, the company has no jobs. They have no job openings. They're fully staffed. But if you reach out and contact somebody, contact that company, whether you drop by, whether you reach out to somebody that you know, whether you just do a cold call and try to contact the hiring manager, and have a conversation and say, I just wanted to introduce myself. I've got extensive experience in this career field, and so I wanted you to be very much aware of who I am and what I do. And so whenever you decide to expand your workforce, I hope you'll consider me. I wanted to introduce myself. And that's all you're doing. And so you have a conversation, you talk a little bit about your successes, the contribution you can make, and it's a very low-key thing because they're not hiring anyway. So there's no competition, there's none of that tension. You just want them to be aware of who you are and what you've done. Okay, the next segment on the timeline, the company has no job postings. They have jobs, or they have potential jobs, or they have upcoming jobs, but they haven't posted anything except possibly internally. Or maybe it's just at the discussion point. We could move this guy into that position, and so we could open up something there. You know, we could do these things. Maybe they posted internally. Maybe they say, does anybody know somebody that you could recommend? Companies would almost always rather hire somebody that somebody knows, somebody that somebody has worked with, rather than somebody new off the street that they don't really know how this person is gonna work out. And so there's that. And this is when all the activity is going on under the water. And from the surface, it looks as though they're not hiring. There's nothing's posted. But there's lots of hiring going on. Sometimes you can look at a company website and they say there are no openings at this time. And then you put that company name into Indeed, and there's 35 jobs posted on Indeed. It's just they didn't have anything posted on their website. So there's activity going on. It's just not publicly announced. And so if you reach out to a company at that point and have a conversation and explain who you are and what you can do, and these are the kinds of problems I solve, and this is how I think I can make a strong contribution to your success, and you do it at that point, you might have a little bit of competition from some internal people, but not a lot. And it could be that you're also going to be part of their strategic plan. And they're going to say, we could move this guy into that area, and we had that guy come by the other day. I think he could fill in Joe's position without even any training. It's exactly what he did for the last 10 years. He could just smoothly hit the ground running, and I think this would be great. You could work him in now while it's a little bit slower. It would be perfect. So you become part of the strategic plan. The third segment on the timeline is when the jobs are posted. And you reach out to the company at that point. Get to the end of the line. We've got 300 applications for that job. And so you've lost the opportunity unless you've set up something where you already have people on the inside that are willing to put in a good word for you. I cannot tell you, you all know this, how important it is to have somebody on the inside that will put in a good word for you, that knows you, that will promote you. Companies always want that. So, at any rate, lots of activity goes on at the end of the year. Whether you know about it or not, whether it's published or not, that doesn't matter. It's a really good time to reach out to companies. Work might be slower, and so it's an opportunity sometimes for you to actually talk to a hiring manager, and they're not so stressed out because they're busy. I used to, in my classes, make an assignment, and I used to say, after we covered cold calling and direct contact, I used to say, okay, everybody needs to go out there and do a cold call. Everybody needs to, this is your assignment for the coming week. You need to do one cold call, you need to have one informational interview. And I had a client who didn't do it for the longest time. He kept waiting, he kept having excuses, he wouldn't do it. And finally, he decided the day he was going to make his cold call was going to be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, because he was pretty sure he wouldn't actually have to talk to anybody. But he had this responsibility. So this guy was a CAD drafter, and he went to an engineering firm. And sure enough, he went into this engineering firm, and there was another drafter there. And the guy said, well, all the managers are gone. If you want to leave your portfolio, I'll be happy to give it to him and see. And you could come pick it up on Monday or call him Monday and see. And he thought, okay, fine. So he left his portfolio, and he considered that to be an enormous success. And on the way out of the building, there was a guy with a great big box, and so he opened the door for this guy. And I think he opened another door for the same guy. And he said, I'm so proud of myself. I'm looking for a job, and I just did my very first cold call contact, and it worked out pretty well, and I'm so excited. And the guy said, well, I'm in sales. That's my world. That's all I do is cold calls. So I'm proud of you, but I'm not that impressed. And he said, well, what do you sell? He said, well, my company does custom kitchens. And so I sell to developers, I sell to contractors, I sell to engineering firms, architecture firms, and so I'm peddling our business. And he said, well, do you ever hire drafters? And he said, the owner of this company, he pretty much knows everybody. If he has a job opening, he reaches out to folks. So I don't think we have any openings or anything. And he said, well, can I give you my resume? He's hot now, so he says, yeah, I'll take your resume. So he turned in his resume, and by the time he got home, there was a message on his recorder from the custom kitchen company that says, we'd like to talk to you. And he ended up getting hired to do drafting. And so it was like, whoa, I made two different kinds of outreach, and I got a job right away. And he could tell the very first week on the job that he wasn't really the right person for that job. And he didn't think there was enough work for him. He did some designs, but he said, I think what they really need is somebody who can do the drafting, but who also is pretty good at cabinetry. Somebody who's, like an amateur cabinet maker, somebody likes to build. And they could work on the build side when there's nothing to do in the drafting side. So he didn't say anything, but that certainly was his feeling at the back of his mind that this wasn't going to last a long time. And by the end of the week, the owner of the company figured that out as well. And so during that week, however, he got a call from the engineering firm because they still had his portfolio. And they called him up and they said, we looked at your portfolio, we're really impressed. We'd like you to come on in for an interview. And he said, I just started a new job. And they said, oh gosh, really? We're very impressed. What would it take to get you to leave them and come work for us? That is the thing everybody wants to hear, correct?
Yeah.
How much would I have to pay you to get you to come over and work for us? And he said, oh, gosh, I just don't think it's right. I'll come pick up my portfolio at some point. If anything happens with this, I'll be sure and get back in touch with you. But I don't think it's ethical for me to leave a job when I just started. I need to give this a shot. And so at the end of the week, boss calls him in and said, I feel so bad about this. I think we acted too rashly. I don't think we have enough work for you. What I really need is somebody that can do that and the cabinetry. I'm going to have to let you go. But we'll pay you an extra week or two for severance because I feel so terrible about this. Do you think it's going to be hard for you to get something else? He said, no, I think it's going to be okay. And he ended up getting the job at the engineering company. So he did 1.5 cold calls, really. I don't know if you, and he got 2 jobs out of it.
Pretty good odds.
Pretty good odds. Yes, sir.
Speaking of sales, and you were talking about referrers, in the sales cycle, I've done a lot of technical pre-sales. And I came to the realization that the job hunt is like being an enterprise software and service salesman in a startup, because you got to do all the marketing, and you got to have great marketing materials. You got to do the sales, and you're the product. But in that sales cycle, you've got kind of 3 levels of people. You've got somebody who is a referrer.
if you're gonna talk that much,
Yeah.
you have to talk on the microphone so that it gets recorded. Otherwise, there's, 5 minutes of nothing
Sure.
but me going, mm-hmm.
The first level is a referrer, and that's somebody who will give your name to the HR people or whatever, and they're not gonna push you. Then you've got a recommender, and they'll put in a good word for you, but when you're doing sales, you want what's called a champion. So you want someone in that company, ideally, you want to cultivate champions. You want somebody in that company who is going to go push for you. And those are hard to find, but through your network you've got to cultivate that. And I just didn't know that anybody or everybody knows that about the sales cycle. And I'm starting to find it to be a very useful concept of cultivating those people who will push for you at places you want to work.
Okay, John is going to make a presentation in the future. We've already talked about that. That was it. So when he makes it, I would like you all to be surprised.
There's lots more.
All right. Often, if you are going to reach out to people during the holiday season, people are not only frequently much more accessible because work is a little bit slower, but they're a little bit happier. They're a little bit kinder. They're not going to say, get thee to a nunnery. I don't want to talk to you. They're going to say, yeah, come on in, have some eggnog. They're a little bit. They've got a little bit of the spirit, and so often I think, and it's a little bit less formal and structured. So if you know somebody, they're going to say, yeah, come. Let's go have lunch, and then I'll come introduce you to my boss. And it's just everything seems to be a little bit slower and a little bit nicer, a little bit more open, and so it's a good time for people to make those connections. So again, that was one of my favorites. Volunteer. When are there wonderful volunteer opportunities? During the holiday season, and I've had quite a few people who have said, once they quit focusing on I need, and started volunteering for other people, the whole universe just kind of fell into place and things worked better for them. But it's also a wonderful way to meet people that you wouldn't normally come in contact with, and you're sharing information, and it's a good way to inform other people of your situation. And one of the ways that you do it is not to say, listen, do you know anybody? I lost my job. That's not what you're there for. You're there for the food drive. You're there, to help the newly arrived refugee. You're there to help kids get shoes. You're there for them, not for you. But if you say, I'm not working right now, so I've got a little extra time. How can I help you? And then the fact that you have said that, I'm not working right now, I have some extra time, how can I help? Very often they'll say, you mean you got laid off? Were you laid off for the holidays? What did you do? Where did you work? And that is sometimes the opening. Not, do you know somebody, can you introduce me? But just, I have the availability right now because I'm not working. So how can I help you? And it puts it on sort of a different aspect that's not so needy. You always want to make it sound as though you're in control. You've chosen to do this, but this is the season when there's so many different ways: blue Santa, brown Santa, black Santa, all the different colors of Santa, and you can help with them. The food drives, the Boy Scouts do a food drive. The coats for kids. I mean, how can you help? How can you help? Shannon was organizing donations for the victims of violence, victims of torture. I forgot which it was. Torture, I think. Victims of Torture, a nonprofit that we learned about through Leap to Success. And she was supposed to be collecting this week and next week toiletries, backpacks, and women's clothing. And so she's not here to do that because of her transportation issues. So it'd be nice if somebody steps up to that plate and does that, but we need to bring a box or something maybe by next week. She's not going to be here next week either, I don't think. So at any rate, volunteer, help out. And that will introduce you to a whole lot of additional people that you wouldn't normally know. Temp jobs over the holiday season. Whether you work Retail, whether you work in hospitality, those are the places, food service, tax season's coming up, temp jobs. We have lots of people that take on temp jobs knowing that they're not going to be stuck in those jobs forever and ever and ever, but it's a good way to make some extra money over the holiday season. And so, you know, you go to work, all you technical folks, let's say you go to work at Fry's, Best Buy or something like that, they love to have people with some technical expertise. And even if you see somebody you used to work with, and you know, don't be embarrassed by that and say, yeah, I'm not working right now, and I thought, well, this will be something fun to do over the holiday season, so I decided to take this up. It's just it's only going to be a 6-week gig, but yeah, it's kind of fun, and I get to see a lot of new technology. You frame it not like, yeah, I lost my job, and you know, I really need the money, and so I'm doing this. No, I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be fun. My fallback job, waiting tables. My bait's so old now I probably couldn't get any money, but in my day I was pretty good at that. But it's fun. I like it. It's fun, and you meet interesting people, and so you make a little money. You're out. You're helping somebody out, and it's like, yeah. I thought I'd take this on. You know, it's going to last a few months, but yeah, it's fun. I'm helping people, whatever. So temp jobs, boom, meet people. Social opportunities, parties, socials, woo! And again, don't use that, don't be obnoxious. Don't walk up to people and say, listen, got any job openings in your company? Who wants to hear that at a party? Nobody. But if it happens, if the situation, you know, like you're talking to somebody and they're talking about needing to move, and you say, oh, I can help you do that. I've got some time on my hands. I'm not working right now. I've got to pick up. I'll help you. I'll do that for you. You got some beer? Okay, I'm in. And you know, it just comes from an attitude of being helpful. But social activities are wonderful places to network. At the end of the year updates. So that was what John was talking about. So you reach out to your network and say, I just wanted to, if you have an actual job search network, maybe quarterly, you send them a little update. These are people you've had informational interviews with. These are people in your SWAT team. These are people that maybe you all got laid off together, and so you're updating people on where you are. And I wanted to read this letter. This is kind of one of those outreach letters. Some of you remember a past speaker that we had, Gina Helfrich. Gina Helfrich had started a staffing company called Recruit Her that was going to help technology companies hire more diverse people, people of color, women, people with disabilities, veterans, a lot of different people. And she was a wonderful speaker about her own personal job search practice. So I read in the Austin Business Journal that her company had closed down. And so I reached out to her immediately and I said, hey Gina, I'm so sorry to hear that. I thought that was such a great company. Is there anything I can do to help? And she said, well, I'm doing what I talked about at Launchpad. I've got a whole series of coffees organized, and so I'm reaching out to my network, and I'll let you know if something happens. Well, apparently nothing happened because I got this. So she said, hello friends and colleagues. I hope this finds you well as we approach the holiday season. As you may have heard, the company I co-founded, Recruit Her, closed for business in July. I've been looking for a new position since then and would very much appreciate your help identifying positions and opportunities that could be a great fit for me. About me, I have 6 years experience in strategic communications, 10 plus years in project management and program management. With the exception of my promotion to director at the Harvard College Women's Center at Harvard University, I have been the first person to hold every full-time professional position I have occupied. I'm highly experienced in managing complex projects in a fast-paced, fluid environment with competing priorities and deadlines. I have extremely strong communication skills, a track record of generating earned media through my content writing and thought leadership. My background includes experience in higher education, nonprofits, and technology. See my LinkedIn and my website. What I'm looking for. My ideal company or organization is doing social impact work that makes the world a better place. I am also open to working for companies that are providing innovative services and technologies that make people's lives better, broadly construed. I hope to find a role with a more established organization that can provide better job security and benefits than an early stage startup. I also want to work a normal schedule and very limited expectation for working nights and weekends. I'm committed to staying in Austin, but I'm opening to remote work or positions that require travel up to 25%. I am targeting the following types of roles: communications manager / director, especially for nonprofits, or content marketing manager. Second bullet, higher education administration, especially director, associate director, assistant director roles. Third bullet, project manager, especially digital marketing or tech. I have a PMP certification. I'm also open to positions in operations, event management, program management, social media, or learning and design. Of course, if you know of any women's empowerment or diversity and inclusion roles, that would be fantastic. I'm willing to accept a position at a somewhat lower seniority level and pay grade if there is a strong possibility to prove myself and move up quickly. If you hear of anything that could be a fit to my skills and experience, please let me know. I would also appreciate any strategic introductions you'd like to make. Thank you so much. With gratitude, Gina. So a very clear picture of here's what I do, here's what I'm looking for. If you can help, that's fine. Jeff Johannekman, a frequent speaker to Launchpad, and a trainer and instructional designer. He's had a lot of great jobs. I used to be on his network list when he was looking for work, and quarterly I would get a similar letter with the additional information at the bottom of, and I'd like to catch up with you. I'd love to take you to coffee. I'm buying and hear what's going on in your world and see if there's a way that I can help you. Helping is a two-way street. Networking is a two-way street. But the end of the year, let's catch up. Perfect. Her last name is Helfrich, Helfrich. She has a PhD in some kind of diversity studies and really an exceptional person. I thought the letter was great. Boom. All right. Connect with, this is a time when you need to make sure that you go onto LinkedIn, connect with as many recruiters, hiring managers, senior level people as you possibly can. You go to a presentation, there's a speaker, connect with that person. I hope you'll all connect with Gina. I hope that you'll all connect with Gary O'Neill. I hope you'll all connect with everybody that is an influencer, people that impress you. And remember, not desperation, but in a spirit of fun. Jubilation, not desperation. Never be desperate. Always be jubilant. Always have fun. I've got some extra time.